For those who aren't familiar with Pauper, it's like Legacy Light. You get to play with commons from throughout Magic's history, all the way back to Alpha.
Let's hook up, and can you bring with you a couple of decks? And we'll get those up on full graphics, and we can actually explore. Like, so here's a mono blue control list. Now I didn't say that at random because obviously I want to play with Counterspell.
Yes.
Many Rich Hagans ask the question, what's a powerful control deck running actual Counterspell for Pauper? Well, sir, I'm afraid mono blue just won't do. We need to splash some black to control our opponent's attack. But don't worry, it does run Counterspell, so all is well, so long as you're willing to get a little dirty with your control. And if you are, wow, then have I got a deck for you, Rich. Dimir Alchemy. Pauper, at a glance, looks like a wasteland for control decks. An incredibly diverse metagame that skews aggressive. Trying to have the right answers all the time isn't exactly easy. Even decks that play along similar lines are vulnerable to different counterpunches, with some working better than others. But Dimir Alchemy is the best positioned control deck in the format. Not only does it lean heavily on instants, but due to the eponymous instant, it can find the right answer for a given situation each and every time. Dimir Alchemy is also highly customizable. Outside of a few key cards, it can be built and adapted for just about any meta game. Even builds that aren't kept up to date can easily break even in a league at a 3-2 record, but a properly tuned version can cut through a tournament like a hot knife through butter. Best of all, the deck only costs about $40. So get ready to spread this on your morning crumpets, Mr. Hagan. Let's take a look. The first question this deck asks is, Teachings or Alchemy? Mystical Teachings is a fantastic Magic the Gathering card, and a common to boot. For 3 and a blue, it is an instant that searches your library for an instant card or a card with flash, reveals it, and puts it into your hand. Teachings also has flashback for 5 and black. Wow! It is a powerful tutor that can be a slow card advantage engine unto itself, and a popular card for Pauper. And yet, despite all this, it's just too slow for the format currently. That's why we're going to go the road of Forbidden Alchemy instead. Forbidden Alchemy is 2 and a blue to look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. It also has flashback for 6 and black. Pauper has numerous breakpoints in gameplay, including the 2nd and 3rd turn. Being able to do something, counter a spell or kill a creature on turn 2 and then follow it up with end of turn alchemy on turn 3 is just what you need to set your wheels in motion. Alchemy is also better at feeding an early Gurmag Angler, which is what we use to win games. Teachings decks suffer from a lack of good win condition, and even more from the absent sweeper. Without these, Teachings decks have to spend too much time and too many cards on trading 1 for 1, and struggling to get and stay ahead. But where Teachings lingers, Dimir Alchemy snaps into a mid-range deck at an instant, and ultimately wins by sticking that Gurmag Angler in and depleting a life total rather than burying the opponent under card advantage. And thus the core of this deck is 3 Forbidden Alchemy. While not a card advantage engine, it is certainly a card selection one. It lets the deck run a wide array of answers while also fueling Gurmag Angler. And obviously we're running a full play set of Gurmag Angler. Once you've dumped into your graveyard, it's 1 mana for a 5/5. What else is there to say? Angler is one of the best threats in the format, and this deck right here excels at casting it. You can get away with 3 copies if you have ways to get it back, such as Soul Manipulation or Grim Harvest, but I like to stick to the full play set. And along those lines, a full play set of Aurora of Bolas is also run. An early drop that can find key cards and absorb some blows. The worst thing about Aurora is that it cannot find you lands directly. Nonetheless, this is a true workhorse. And that's it. That is the core of this deck, those 3 cards. I'm going to go through what I think are the optimal counterspells and removal, but I love how much the player themselves can fine-tune this deck, not only to their meta, but to their play style. So let's take a look at what I recommend running in addition to the core. Actually, the first thing I should mention is something I'm not running. Muldrifter, and yes, I know it's a great card, and it's true that some alchemy Alchemy decks do run Mole Drifter, and of course that soul manipulation to get it back, but I just don't recommend it in the current meta. Simply put, Mole Drifter is too expensive to warrant inclusion. With sorcery speed card draw, the goal is to be able to cast it and then do something with the fresh cards that turn. Mole Drifter just does not allow that. Instead, I run Compulsive Research. Now stop, hear me out. Compulsive Research is not meant to be cast on the third turn, but rather a later turn when you have returned a land with Dimir Aqueduct and can then put the fresh cards to use, usually by stopping your opponent's plans. And thus I run 2 Compulsive Research as a main way to go up on cards. While it is indeed a sorcery, it combos so well with the mana base of Dimir Aqueduct. Tap 3 lands, play Aqueduct, discard the bounce land, etc. And unlike Mole Drifter, it can be found with the Aurora of Bolas. It's not an ideal turn 3 play, but shines in the mid to late game. Let's take a look at some control and removal. 2 Counterspell, which is 2 to counter target spell. Bam! It's the OG, yo, yeah, you know me. We'd run 4 of these if we could, but the mana would be atrocious. So instead we'll include 4 Prohibit, which is one of the best counters in the format. At its base, it costs 1 in blue, making it easy to cast in 2-color decks. Prohibit is great in the early game, and it excels at Counter Wars due to the low blue requirement. We'll also be running 3 Think Twice. 1 in a blue to draw a card and flashback for 2 in blue. This lets us churn through the deck and works from the graveyard. A pair of Chainer's Edict. Thanks to it being printed at Common and Vintage Masters, Edict is pauper legal and has been making waves in the format. For black and 1, target player sacrifices a creature, and flashback at 5 and 2 black makes this 2 removal spells in 1. It takes out creatures you can't target, and against decks with very few threats, it can hit the only one they have on board. What else is there to say about this card? It's great. They should have never downgraded it to common, but their lack of foresight is our ambition. 2 Evincer's Justice, it's just 2 black and 2, and has the incredibly broken buyback for 3, meaning you may pay an additional 3 as you cast this spell, and if you do, you get to put it right back into your hand as it resolves. Evincer's Justice deals 2 damage to each creature and each player. This makes it the best sweeper we can run. Justice chews through a wide array of creature-based decks, and in the late game you can use buyback to increase your clock. Be sure to watch your own life total, as this deck is prone to taking damage in the early game. 3 Disfigure, it's an instant for black that gives target creature -2/-2 until end of turn. One of the best 1-mana removal spells there is, and handles most every 1-drop and gets around regeneration effects. Also useful in combat against other large creatures as a way to have Angler emerge victorious. We're also going to want to slip in a pair of Tragic Slip. Whoa, watch out for that open grave! This will often be the 2nd removal spell cast in a given turn. Using an Edict to take out something and then slip in to kill their real threat is a common play pattern. Do not be afraid to burn this on an offending X and 1 if needed. A single Ghastly Demise, a spell I just love. 1 black for an instant that destroys target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. Dimir Alchemy will usually have a full graveyard, which turns this into a poor man's Swords to Plowshares. No, we don't get to exile, but 1 mana to kill almost anything is just too good to pass up. A pair of Echoing Decay for black and 1, this instant gives target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature -2/-2. Similar to Disfigure, except it can take out token armies in 1 fell swoop. Another nice way to contain threats. The removal train continues with 1 Doomblade. You know this as the core magic card deemed too powerful for the core. Hits almost everything in the format that isn't Gurmag Angler. It's point and click removal. 1 Diabolic Edict, another Edict effect, but this one has the advantage of being cast at instant speed. This can matter against decks like Tribe Combo, Izzet Blitz, and Hexproof. Frankly, it's just a good card that you can use immediately after Alchemy. And of course, a single Agony Warp. 1 black and blue to make your opponent's black and blue. Agony Warp gives target creature -3/-0 until end of turn. and target creature -0, -3 until end of turn. A fine removal spell that can be used to stem damage. Splitting the targets means being able to staunch the bleeding and remove another threat. The 2-color mana requirement makes it harder to run as many copies, and that's why we've only got a single one here. So what does our mana base look like? Well, we've of course got 1 Bojuka Bog. I mean, that's basically a free inclusion for Graveyard Hate at this point. A full play set of Dismal Backwaters, our on-color dual lands. 3 Dimir Aqueducts, as the Aqueducts give us an additional mana in fewer land slots. With 3 Aqueducts, the deck is capable of producing 26 mana from 23 lands. This matters in the late game where you want to flashback Alchemy and do something else in the same turn. After that, it's 9 islands and 6 swamps. Look at that price tag, I love it. So what's in this deck's sideboard? Obviously, just as flexible as the main, if not more so. I recommend we include 3 Duress, which helps fight combo decks and lets us plot out how to leverage removal encounters. 3 Hydroblast, red and blue are enemies, you know. 2 Dispel to fight other counterspell decks and decks with Temur Battle Rage, not to mention Fling and Inside Out. A pair of Stormbound Geists. Look at these. They're good against Delver as a blocker, and other decks with Chainer's Edict as a way to negate that spell's efficiency. Could easily be main deck in some meta games. Play around with them, you're gonna love them. Another key is a pair of Vidalian Zombie. We usually side this in against Stompy for blocks. 2 Into the Royal, a flexible answer to non-creature, non-land permanents. And 1 more Chainer's Edict for when you need 1 more Chainer's Edict. Comes up more often than you'd think. In today's Pauper meta, control often has an uphill climb. With no real sweepers and no cost-efficient card advantage, aggro just ekes too far out. But Dimir Alchemy is the bubbling brew to do unto others what you'd never want them to do unto you. Control and remove, sweep when needed, and delve deep into that Gurmag Angler to beat your enemies, black and blue. So Rich, I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. You can help me out by ringing my bell and letting me know in the comments what Pauper deck you'd like to see attack on next. This last weekend was an amazing Pauper experience at GP Indy, where over 215 players showed up on Sunday to play in the Pauper Double Up event. This was so many people. These events usually have 40 to 60 if they're big players. We had over 215 showing up to play Pauper. We broke the computer system. There was huge delays in getting things posted. They lost players' names. They made it up to us with some free playmats, but nonetheless, it was an epic event, and now this weekend is the challenge between GP Houston and GP London. This Sunday at noon at both GP Houston and GP London are the Pauper Double Up events, and let's see not only if both of these can beat the record of GP Indy, but which one is going to beat the other. More Pauper players at GP Houston or more Pauper players at GP London. And this is far from the only Pauper you're going to see at a GP, because Sunday Pauper events, Sundays at noon, will take place at all GPs in the first quarter of this year. I think it's going to get expanded beyond that. You're just going to need to show up. GPs, first quarter of 2018, all of them, Sunday at noon. Pauper Double Up events starting at GP Memphis. There will be daily Pauper events. Paupers happening at GP's Turbotown Pauper events all the time. Take your Pauper deck down to a GP and get some games in, and you might just end up getting paired off against me. We'll just have to see.
So let's do that. And if you are coming to GP London, you can hang out with the Professor. You can come and play at one of these huge Pauper events. They're real celebrations. And listen, thank you so much for taking the time, because I know how busy you are. I watched you in Santa Clara. We wanted to get you there, and we just couldn't get near you.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but
I've
told my security guards that they can let you up to me this time. And I'm really
great.
Sorry for how they handled you, Rich. I'm embarrassed.
It's all right.
And I will pay for the suit. I will pay for the suit.
Fantastic. The Professor, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Pauper. Come to GPs and play Pauper with the Professor.